It's finally here. 12.9 came with the Kriss Vector and the UMP. So today we're going to be diving into 45 ACP breakdown and how does it stack up against armor with some comparisons against 9x19, which can also be interchanged in the Kriss Vector. So stick around and find out how much of a monster this round really is. Before we jump into the testing, I want to remind you guys that I do stream on Twitch. The links for that will be featured down in the description below if you want to see me running these guns live. So what are we testing here today? We are going to be focusing on 45 ACP, FMJ, and Laser Match for armor testing. We will be doing some comparisons to 6.3 and 7 and 31 as well as a leg meta breakdown for 45 ACP RIP and Hydra Shock compared to other 9x19 variants. For methodology, we are going to be testing all the way from level 3 to level 6 armor, as always, max durability and multiple tests. We are going to be doing some visor and helmet testing at the end of the video, so make sure you stick around for that. Jumping straight into leg meta, we will be starting off with 45 ACP Hydra Shock, coming in 95 damage. This is a monster. We are going to see 6 shots to the leg with Hydra Shock, which is actually incredibly solid and comparable with Quakemaker. Coming in at a whopping 127 damage, 45 ACP RIP, paired with the 1200 RPM of the Kriss Vector is absolutely disgusting, guys, and one of the fastest time to kills in the game right now. As we look at 9x19 RIP comparable with 102 damage, we will notice that 9x19 has 1 additional round per leg. Quakemaker as well, comparable to Hydra Shock, does come in at a rough 6 shots to the leg, which is pretty much identical. Now, if we look at comparison of more, we are going to notice that 45 ACP RIP is the best here at 4 shots, and the worst being PSO at 9. Although CCI and Quakemaker are good alternatives, I would stick to either Quake, RIP, or Hydra Shock if you're doing any sort of leg meta, especially paired with the 1200 RPM of the Kriss Vector. Jumping straight into armor testing here today, we are starting off with Laser Match. Coming in at 18 pen and 74 damage, this round isn't that great in terms of pen, but it does make up for it in flesh damage. So obviously we jumped straight into factory and did this multiple times, but starting off with the 6x516 ULA, we will be noticing that not only is Laser Match not so great penetration-wise on paper, but even in practicality when shooting even one of the lowest level rigs here, and a very common one, we will be let down significantly with an insane amount of shots totaling about 11 here on a decent rig. Now, this gets slightly better with Karasa because we got lucky here in terms of pen, but I just wanted to point out that this round isn't really a great round and across the board will let you down, especially with the fact that it won't pen level 3 helmets reliably. As we look at something like the 6B3TM, a very common level 4 vest in Tarkov, we will start to see the cracks starting to show on the surface of Laser Match and how it actually doesn't have enough penetration to really be reliable. And the fact is, at the very end of the test, we had 12 durability, showing me that there's possibility that this vest could actually stop a couple more rounds, which is actually quite insane. Now, if we look at the total summary of all the average of the runs that we did, on level 1 to 2 armor, we do see some consistency, whereas level 3 and 4, it is absolutely horrible. And even with the 1200 RPM of the Kriss Vector, I don't think I would recommend this round as it is simply not good enough. As we look at FMJ, however, we are going to be stepping up the pen here to 19 with a damage of 72. Now, I'll get into why this round is better in a second. Starting off with the level 3 rig, we're going to see a little bit more consistency here as we actually end up bringing this guy down in 7 shots. Same with the Karasa once again, we did get quite lucky on the pen here and we did test Karasa a few times and did notice sometimes that we could take up to 7 shots. As we look at level 4 once again, we are going to struggle. Even with the 6B3TM, which is an incredibly cheap vest, we are going to be let down. This coming in at 11 shots, and it even gets worse when it comes towards Trooper. Now, I don't really want to spoil it for you guys, but if you do run against someone with Trooper and you are using this round, let's hope you have a few spare mags or hopefully an extended mag, because this is just simply horrible at 17. Now, if we look at the difference between the two, we are going to notice slightly better results from FMJ. And that is because FMJ actually has only slightly better pen, but we will notice a little bit more consistency in the level 3 and the level 4 armors. Although this round isn't great, I wouldn't actually recommend it over something like AP 6.3. FMJ's armor damage percentage is actually better than Laser Match, coming in at 36 over Laser Match's 12, and that's why we see better consistency in the level 4 and 5s. Jumping into what I would actually recommend anyone use, especially with the Kriss Vector or UMP, is going to be AP. Coming in at 36 pen and 70 damage, this round is a monster. So we're jumping straight into a Coraza, and we're going to see that 36 pen in action, just cutting straight through level 3 armor, and that 36 close to 40 pen. But we're going to notice that even at class 4, we do see a lot more reliability, even though we don't have to make a trade-off for flesh damage. All the way up to a Korund here as well, we actually, because of the insane amount of flesh damage of the Korund, we absolutely punch this armor to death. Now, I will be working on a video separately for Korund and how it stacks up against different armors in the level 5 class. So make sure you guys are subscribed for that in the future, because I will be doing a really awesome breakdown and you won't want to miss it. Now, we did get quite lucky on the pen here with 7 rounds, but I did notice with a lot of durability left, we could have took a lot more. Now, once again, something like ultra high weight polyethylene in the AA-CPC, which is an armored rig, we do see a little bit more consistency here up to 9 rounds and the possibility of stopping an additional 2. Now, if we look at something like the 6B13M or Killer Armor, once again, with a great material type, we will notice it will take a lot more rounds than something like a Korund, even from a round as mighty as 45 ACP AP. And when we look at something like Slick though, this is where it puts its foot down. Something like Slick is an actually incredible armor, and we will notice that this lack of pen doesn't give us reliability with 12 shots to bring down a fresh Slick. If we look at the comparison between the two, it becomes very obvious of why you would pay more for AP. Just mainly that consistency in the level 4, which is one of the most common armors, as well as the fact that it can 4-tap a Korund, which is one of the most common and reoccurring level 5 armors, and something that you would run into quite often, especially with 1200 RPM that just simply cuts through it like butter. So I get what you're probably thinking, sitting in your chair, you're saying, Vox, why would you run AP over 7N31? And we do sacrifice a large amount of flesh damage for an additional 3 pen on 7N31. So if we look at how that translates to real life armor, once again, we are going to see it cut straight through a Coraza in 2 shots, as well as the fact that it is more consistent in killing level 4 armor. We never had any opportunities to actually get 4 shots on even a trooper. 7N31 even showed more consistency in the level 6 armor versus Slick, as that higher pen just helped even at higher durabilities. Now ultimately for this SMG, the 3 options that you have, I would recommend 45 ACP AP over 6.3 here, as it simply has more consistency in both the level 3 and 4. However, you do pay slightly more for it, and it does have a recoil modifier. The most interesting part though is 7N31 is still the king, and even though you do sacrifice flesh damage, which means sometimes in some situations you won't get a 2-tap, we will see a lot more consistency in the level 4, 5, and 6 armor, especially from 7N31's 39 pen, which sometimes can give you a guaranteed 2-tap on level 4 armor, which is simply just a deal breaker here. As for helmet testing, we won't be testing all the ammos here today, but we will be doing 45 ACP AP, starting off with a common ULAC. Now we see 3 shots here for a ULAC, and also the Cayman here with the applique armor on top, an additional level 4 armor, coming in at 5 shots. Now I didn't test level 3 helmets as it would be a 1-tap, but I just wanted to point out that we didn't test that for that reason. If we look at something like the Slap, however, we do have a lot more consistency in the amount of shots that you can take, simply because of that level 5 armor. And if we look at something like a Vulcan, a very rare but insane helmet, including the Bastion as well, would take up to 10 or more shots, which is just simply unrealistic. Now once again, I wanted to point out, against visors, you will have a good time against fast MT visors or anything like the Wendy, but you will start to struggle when you start to push level 4 with consistency. This is something where 7N31 would definitely shine through, although the price difference can be quite nutty. As we look at the Alton, however, that's when the story changes. You don't want to be running up against someone with an Alton, and that is especially with a 1911. Maybe in full auto this would be a different story, but this is just simply too insane to recommend. So that's it for this video. If you want a more in-depth look at 9x19, I do have an additional video talking about that a little bit more in-depth if you want to see how it stacks up against armor. If you guys enjoyed any of the content here today, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. If there's a specific ammo you'd like to see me do next, let me know in the comments down below. I will appreciate any sort of feedback on anything we talked about here today. And as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.